What's up, my good peoples? Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast, where we're talking about ideas and truth that stimulate wholesome thinking unto identity, purpose, vision, and action. I am James Anderson, and with me is Kyle Entenman and Logan Eaton, my good bros.
What up?
What's cracking?
What's crack-a-lackling? Good to be back here today. Hey,
Good to
Logan.
be back another Tuesday.
How you doing?
Doing good.
Good. You ride
How
your
are
bike?
you?
Doing well. Did you ride your bike over today?
I did.
Yeah.
You did?
No, I did.
Oh.
Got warmer out, didn't it?
Yeah, it finally got up to 30 today. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you
That's enough to bring the bike out, but
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
There was some guys riding the bikes though that I almost hit on the way over.
Oh,
really?
nice.
Yeah.
It's a little sloppy out there. It's a little,
Yeah.
little wet.
Yeah. I wish I had a station wagon.
I love station wagons.
Good cars.
Yeah.
Never
we,
drove one though.
We used to have one as a kid.
You did?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Really put
Wow.
a ladder on top of it. Yeah. Family trips
You
all
had the
over.
fire ladder on top? It's
Yeah.
basically a fire engine / car. It's got enough to hold
Yeah.
a big tank of water in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. They're powerful. You put down the seats and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Did you have like the seats in the back that you could you were sitting backwards?
I think so, yeah, or at least they folded down a little bit.
You could sit backwards?
Yeah,
Well, I
like the seats you were facing the
Yeah.
back.
I remember, going into the garage once and sitting in it, and the cigarette lighter, putting it in the lighter thing, and then burning the car seat with it. Yeah, my mom wasn't too happy about that.
You idiot.
Yeah, I was kind of an experimental kid. Yeah.
like to burn things. Huh?
I did. I just doing
I won't
ruckus,
hurt you.
ruckusy stuff. Yeah, just looking for some excitement.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we had I think at one time we had a bit of a station wagon, but anyways, and it had like one of the gear shifters, like in the center console thing, and I moved it from park to like neutral,
Yeah.
and we're on a hill, so I'd drive a little bit and put it back in park.
Yeah.
Dumb.
Those were the days.
Kids don't do that.
Yeah, they shouldn't, but it happens.
They shouldn't, but we encourage it.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to have a little fun. Birds
Yeah.
were out today too.
Birds were out.
Yeah,
They finally flew back down from Canada
I
today.
think so. Coming back to,
Coming back for the summer.
I don't know how that's.
Don't they go fly south?
I think it's a hemisphere thing, to be honest. I think they get further away from the equator during the winter, and then they come closer to the equator during the summer.
I
And
think
Just
they-
make that up.
I think
the
they
other
go-
one is the
I think they go
the
away.
prime meridian that
Yeah.
splits the globe. The other half,
I think
and
they
sometimes
go
they fly northwest of that.
Yeah.
Are you
to
a
get
scientist?
to get to a new
No.
location?
What's a prime meridian?
They go the.
That's the way when the moon lines up with Earth at a certain time, and then usually it makes a line on the Earth that people can travel by. It's almost like a travel grid.
Like an eclipse?
It's almost like like you could follow a straight line if you wanted
To where?
if you wanted to go from south, or if you wanted to go from the Antarctica to the Arctic. It's just a straight
Yeah.
line. Pilots use it. Birds use it.
Pilots.
Hey,
It's a
ever-
prime meridian. It's prime.
It's prime.
The
You
other
can see it
meridians
from
aren't as
space.
good because
Yeah.
they're not straight.
wow.
But anyways, that's in science books all over the country.
You ever heard of the? So we're on
I
this
promise.
topic. You ever heard of the? You ever heard of the Bermuda Triangle?
Yeah,
Oh, you have.
been there.
And
That
you-
actually. Where
And you're
were
back?
you born?
Yeah, the prime meridian makes a 90-degree angle towards that.
towards it. That's
Yeah.
why people get lost.
Well, that's why birds don't fly over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not a straight angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
Thank
weird
God.
lines on the earth.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows what's going on out there.
Thank God we found so many people
Scientists
for this
will tell
podcast.
you stuff, but they don't know. They don't know anything.
That's also in science books all across the world.
Yeah, I was a doctor.
And so.
But anyways, the birds are back. They
Yeah.
flew back into
No,
town,
I mean-
which is good because I like listening to them.
Yeah. Dr. Eaton. Everybody. Logan's a man of many.
I feel like this is. I
He's a
feel
man.
like I'm not doing myself any good by
Well, you're
continuing to talk.
Where you're making our listeners believe false evidence, and you're
No,
gonna,
the prime meridian. I'm telling you, look it up on a website, and that'll tell you the truth.
yeah.
Promise.
Just look it up on
just
Google.
look up
just look on
just
Google.
look up seagull migration, bird
Yeah.
migration, any kind of bird migration,
Any kind of migration.
and it'll bring
whale
up
migration.
equators, prime meridians, the distance from, our location to where we would be if we were on the moon, the corresponding side of the moon. All that's in there.
Yeah.
Anyways.
on that website
Yeah.
or on
Yeah.
every website.
Yeah. No, every .gov website usually has something about that.
Well, good. Thank you for that.
College kids, if you're out there listening, I wrote many papers on this. If you guys need references, we got to get into it.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was.
God.
I thought it was South Dakota.
I'm glad you brought it back up, though. 'cause,
yeah. It
I-
sounded like you're really
It's
passionate
research
about
you had
that.
almost forgotten about.
Yeah, well, I think people should take notice of when the birds come back to town. It's almost we should almost have a parade or something.
Good.
Wow.
Instead of a Halloween parade, we have a bird migration parade.
Mm.
Hey, spring's only 106 days away.
Well, it's kind of cold in the area, so
Yeah,
it's nice
it
to
is.
see those.
It is.
Nice to see those chirpers back around.
For those of you out of town, it's about 25 degrees right now in
Yeah.
Bowling Green.
Well, now it is.
Winds
Yeah.
are howling. Yeah.
It was maybe 50 earlier.
Oh
50,
my
55.
gosh.
Yeah. It really dropped. About a 35-degree drop
Oh.
since about 6 p.m. Yeah. Anyways, you out of town listeners, Bowling Green's in Northwest Ohio.
Come and visit us
Uh,
sometime.
We're about, what would you say, about 650 miles south of Lake Erie, and then
650? I think you're a little off there.
I don't know. It usually takes 6 hours to get up there.
From the prime meridian, or
Walking.
the triangle.
Or in a broken down station
It
wagon.
depends on what navigation system.
I
you
think
use,
whether
guess.
you're walking or driving, it's still the same amount of miles.
Yeah.
Could take a different amount of time,
Yeah,
but the distance is probably the same.
how far away, for those of you listening in like the West Coast, how far away do you think we are from there? Since you have experience there, like would you say
From from here to the West Coast?
from like the beach on
At least
from the beach.
25,000 miles.
What?
At least.
Yeah, I think it's like
25,000?
it's. I think it's
I
3,000
think that's
across.
the distance to the moon. I think.
Yeah.
Is that light
I don't
years?
know. I haven't been out to California yet.
Yeah,
Or
I
I'd
guess
like-
we should drive it.
I'd
and know
like
for
to
sure.
go there someday.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the Grand Canyon.
You ever played
that's
that game
not
Oregon
in
Trail?
California.
Huh? It's not.
No, it's not. That is in
What'd you say?
Oh,
Arizona.
I'd like to, you ever played the Oregon Trail?
The
Yes.
computer
It's-
game.
It's a good game, yeah.
Yeah. I used to play that.
Did that go through
I
California?
never won that game though.
I think it went to
Or
California.
did it go through Oregon?
Ah,
It's Oregon, by the
yeah,
way.
it might have.
Oregon Trail.
I just
Oregon
never bought
Trail.
any supplies on that game. I just packed up and left. And then a day later, everyone was dead.
He
That
killed
makes sense.
Yeah, so not really a travel expert.
Unless it's on the prime meridian and then it's on.
Yeah. Back when I had my pilot's license, I could.
Dude, how many lies are you going to tell the listeners here?
It does make me think of the time I was in Fiji, though.
Yeah,
That was real.
that's where I got my boating license.
Beautiful out there, huh?
That's probably the boat we took where I threw up. But we went to this island, and on this island was the international date line. You could stand on one side of this pole and be in today. You could stand on the other side and be in tomorrow.
Wow.
Did
Or
What?
yesterday. Yeah. Who could remember?
Mhm.
How does that work?
Well, it's a little bit like the equator and the prime meridian.
Is that where
Minus
the
the moon.
scientists were doing the time zones, and then they just had to meet them up? They had to merge.
Yeah,
them at
well, I
some
think
point.
it has to do with the equator. I mean, when they measured out the equator and they marked it
Mhm.
across the world, that was
Oh.
also the international date line.
Gotcha.
Internationally,
So you could
not
literally
domestically.
push somebody into tomorrow.
Yes.
Can't do that here, literally.
No.
Wow.
But you could then.
Hmm.
Yeah. Fun
Cool.
fact.
Wow.
Don't know what the island was called.
Interesting.
I think it took like a 10-hour ferry ride to get there.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Hmm.
Sounds majestic.
It was a bit majestic. It was quite beautiful. It's very
Was it?
tropical.
Very tropical.
Tropical-esque. You want to talk about palm trees? They had some palm trees.
Monkeys.
Fiji?
And oceans, yeah.
Monkeys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we went
Yeah.
all around the
No
old
taxes
island
down there. They can't with the equator being down there.
A lot of
I'm just saying it's a good place.
yeah,
Because there's no doubt. Because of the
a lot
equator.
of equator talk.
Yeah,
What's an equator with you?
Equator.
What?
that's it's usually pretty warm down there, right?
Yeah.
Down by the equator.
Down by the old tropics.
I
Yeah.
remember learning about that in geography class,
For your flying or
freshman year.
for your coding
Freshman year.
Yeah, yeah.
Man,
at,
Freshman year
at
of,
Harvard?
wait, how many students were in there?
Huh?
Like five including you.
It was a 500 level course. so
500.
It was only
Well, you
me
went
and-
to a pretty
it was
small
only
high school, didn't
me
you?
and another person, huh?
Yeah, you went to a pretty small high school, didn't you?
It was really
Real special high school.
Yeah, it's just prestigious.
Kind of a farming high school, correct?
It was rural.
Yeah.
It was very
Yeah.
rural. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
a lot of rurals out there. But yeah, I'd say one day I want to go to the equator
Mm.
and the prime meridian where they cross.
Do you
Yeah.
just want to walk across the equator, across the whole world? 'Cause it's like a bridge.
Yeah, well, you can travel by it once
you
you
can
line
just
your
walk right-
GPS on it.
Oh, wow.
You can just it'll follow that line, and you can just walk, swim,
Circular, right across the
whatever you want to do. huh?
sphere of the Earth. This is the equator.
Yeah, it goes laterally around.
Laterally, that's
Yeah,
where. And then
yeah.
Whoa.
Latitudinally.
Latitudinally
is the prime meridian. Is it?
Yeah, that's latitudinally.
Laterally and
Latitudinally.
Laterally
is the
and
prime
latitudinally?
meridian, Yeah.
that's not
Latitude
Yeah.
and longitude?
It was right by Greenwick. That runs right along Greenwick, the Netherlands. I'm
I bet you're right on that. Yeah.
yeah,
Latitude and
you know,
longitude. Longitudinally.
Longitudinally
And latitude.
across
Yeah.
Right.
Gosh.
Right.
the prime meridian.
That's
Those
what
were
we
the
said,
days.
Yeah, longitude. Yeah, if you
You
go to
know-
Greenwick, you need about 4 watches to tell the time over there, just because of how the location of it.
Yeah.
Right next to the prime meridian, right next to the equator.
So those people
When the
were really
moon's
good
beating down
with-
on that place,
Yeah.
you might as well not even worry about telling time.
The
The
moonbeams?
tides are
The moon beams.
Oh, the people got to wear glasses there too, right?
Yeah,
Because of the way the sun beams
Yep.
down right at certain times.
right at that central location of the Earth. Yeah, they're the closest to the core of the Earth too.
Wow. The Greenwich people.
Greenwick. Yeah.
The core of the earth,
Yeah.
which is in the middle of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the
Fire.
closest.
They're the closest. There's it's almost like a big indent. Look this up.
They're below the sea level
They're
Sea level.
below sea level. Yeah.
by like a foot.
If any of those levees break around Greenwick, the whole place is blown.
They made a giant bowl.
Yeah.
Well, duh. Okay.
Gosh.
You guys need to subscribe to
To
a couple
Wow.
magazines like
I'm going to look this
Reader's
up.
Digest
That's for
or-
sure.
Fake Science Monthly.
I'm going to look this up.
That actually makes a lot of sense now.
The tabloids. All this stuff's in there.
Do those exist anymore?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Come over to my house. Yeah.
Stacks of them. Yeah, read the tabloids, Fake Science Monthly. Anyways, what are we talking about?
I don't know.
What are we doing today?
Who can even
I
remember?
don't know.
I got in my geography zone there.
We were talking about
I
deep.
kind of want to travel.
Well, maybe you can.
Some- I wanna
Maybe you
travel
can
too.
someday.
Maybe.
Yeah. Once you get that horse and buggy repaired.
Yeah.
That
You're right, yeah.
Station wagon horse and buggy repaired.
Yeah, when you lose the horse, there's really not much purpose to it
Mm.
anymore.
To the
Whoa.
buggy?
To the buggy, yeah.
Unless you put
You
a
don't
little
got a horse
engine
for
to
it.
it.
Huh?
Put a little engine to it.
Yeah. Yeah, you could.
Get Kyle with his bike
Sure.
Yeah, did you ever ride go-karts when you were younger?
once or twice.
Sometimes you can put like a lawnmower engine on those
Yeah.
or a vacuum cleaner.
Does not go very fast.
You ever pulled a friend behind one?
Reverse the vacuum cleaner, huh?
You ever pulled anyone on one? Had like a friend
A
on
four-wheeler,
a
for sure.
skateboard or something? Yeah.
Yeah, we used to like tie the rope to the snowboard and
Okay.
then ride the four-wheeler, yeah. And wipe
Cool.
out. Yeah.
Mm,
That was our winter fun. Dangerous, but
dangerous.
man, the snow was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snowboard
Did you huh?
Yeah, we had snow. We had
Well, we didn't have mountains, so we had to
ATVs.
pull 'em behind something.
Mm. To get any speed.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
We
Yeah.
had a couple ATVs though.
Had an ATV. Yep.
Had one.
Still got it, but
Still
wrecked
got
it a
it.
few times. Yeah.
Still running?
Still running.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's probably 15 years old. It's an old guy.
Oh,
Blair-
next time it
well-
snows, bust that baby out.
Yeah, Yeah, we good. Big Bear 250, 350.
Is
something
that what
like
it is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know that one? You know that
No. It sounds like a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. Yep.
one? Yep.
That was our winter fun.
Mm. Nice.
Yeah.
We
whenever-
it would get dark at about 1 p.m. and then
Go
that's
get
when we
some
would
hot
go do
chocolate.
it. Yeah. Yeah. We'd just pull up to the Coney Island. Drive through.
Gosh, those are good.
Man, that place was.
That place is
You ever had
Ah.
their baked beans?
Making me hungry just thinking about it.
Jeez. There's one popping up in a new location
Coney dogs.
almost every day. And then one closing down in the same location
Yeah.
almost every day.
They're delicious.
You really got to have a map if you want to go to that
Oh,
place.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever
Mm.
take geography?
Yeah,
You did?
like 7th grade.
Yeah, I think that's about what I took.
Yeah,
Mm.
I wasn't that great at it.
No, I wasn't.
No.
We had to memorize everything, where it was at, the people
I just
there.
know New Zealand's the capital of Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about all I.
That's all you took from the course?
Yeah.
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 All I took was the prime meridian and the latitongicals.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The what?
The latitongicals.
latitongicals.
That's the science of the
Sounded
of
like
the,
something
of
else.
the lats and longs, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, don't go to the Bermuda Triangle. I
They
think that
didn't-
was your original question.
They haven't figured that one out yet.
No, it's just a lot of force fields there.
Foreskin.
A lot of crystals.
Yeah.
A lot of going back in time.
Speaking of Bermuda Triangle,
Yeah.
motivation.
You got some?
Yeah, why don't you
I
tell
was
us about-
hoping that
What are we talking about? Motivation.
yeah,
Yeah.
motivation. What motivates somebody to go to a place like that?
To the triangle?
Well, if they want to see something weird like Nessie or
Monkey.
UFOs or something like that out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, motivation. Where does it come from?
Yeah.
How is it fed?
Mm.
What does it lead to?
Mm.
How do you find it?
Mm.
These
Yeah.
are all questions that we're going to answer for you.
Perfect.
That's the game plan.
Yeah.
So yeah, speaking of the Bermuda Triangle.
Speaking of the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
Are you motivated, Kyle? Would you say you're a motivated person?
Not all the time, but
Where does your motivation come from?
well, depends. Am I hungry? Because if I'm hungry, you know, and I don't want to make anything, but I think about the end of that big juicy cheeseburger. I'll whip
At
out that
Coney
griddle
Island?
faster than you can say.
Big grilled cheese and peanut butter.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, definitely not. Not all the time I'm not motivated, but I mean,
To make the burger?
to do, yeah, I mean, there's things that I have to, like, if I could just, like, do nothing and lay on the couch and watch TV or play guitar, I'd be okay. I'd probably get bored pretty quick. I'd get bored, but lately I've been trying to focus more on motivation and discipline in my life.
Nice.
Thank
Good
you.
stuff.
Yeah.
And what specifically?
Well,
And why? What motivated it?
well, my personal vision of what I would like to do with my life, or while I'm here on this, using my time valuable
On the earth.
on the earth. Yeah.
On the prime meridian?
Yeah, being of service to people and helping populations. Kind of helping. What we talked about, my vision to bring kids and adolescents some kind of purpose and vision in their lives. So that kind of motivates me to make the connections and keep on doing the footwork to make that happen.
Seeing that like that daydream
Yeah.
helps you to motivate.
Yeah, like in my head, like
Yeah.
so I can kind of visualize it. So we talked about like a place where kids could go and stay for amount of time, and there'd be education and jobs they could do to help them, feel that they're part in doing something productive, growing food and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but that's my personal, what I can see in my like kind of dream or vision. I could probably draw it on a piece of paper too, but that kind of fuels the motivation.
Yeah.
And so you say you were getting into some disciplines because of that.
Sure.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, we're doing, working 5 days a week, doing that, and then working on like all sorts of, in the areas of like, it's so watching how I treat myself. So am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating decently? Am I spending time in meditation, asking, God for what his plans are? I'm asking for help, praying a lot, and sacrificing, putting my time into areas that are going to be beneficial for that. Because I think I could do 1,000 things. I could do this. I could hang out here. I could, exercise 5 days a week. I could whatever. I could pick up another class, but I think I've decided like to have that, okay, I'm waking up this time, and from this time to this time, I'm putting forth that effort to use my time as wisely as I can. Which sometimes I get off track. I'm like, I start to do something else, or I start to daydream and all that, but I try to refocus on doing that. But yeah, that discipline is, and I'm not that great at it, but I think having that vision can help when you're steering towards something, to really analyze what you're doing with your time and try to put it towards as much constructive use as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
So for example, like doing this, like hanging out with you guys is an important part of, like, am I tired at the end of the day? Do I always want to? No, but I know that it's not about, I had to sacrifice some things. I'll still have enough time to get home, rest, eat, get enough sleep for tomorrow. But this, like, I feel like when the doors are open for certain things, like you make a commitment towards something, you make that commitment and you keep going despite, because we've talked about that, feelings are not facts. So you can feel a certain way and to almost talk yourself out of things. But when you make a commitment, it kind of holds you there. And then that helps you with that motivation to, okay, I'm going to do it. And then by the time you're done, you're like, okay, I'm glad that I did that.
Yeah.
So motivation's not necessarily based on how you feel or a feeling then.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so talking for me, I guess it's doing it despite how I may feel, like, despite, like, I'm feeling tired or irritable or whatever, I don't want to do it. I do it, and then it kind of gets that motivation going, but I have to do the initial footwork to start that.
Maybe motivation. Maybe a better way to say that, motivation doesn't come from an emotion or a feeling. Then.
It might not. I mean, for me, like I said, like, it comes from that drive to know that there's a bigger picture, and it might not happen right away. It might take patience.
Sure.
Because
it comes from what you see your preferred future being.
Yeah, because if I just relied on feelings, then I'd probably get myself into a bunch of boohoo pity party and why isn't this happening, and I can't do this and stuff like that. So I think it's important to kind of analyze or not looking at your feelings towards things, but starting that going. And then once you get it's like working out, getting there is the hardest. It's like getting to the gym probably is like one of the hardest things just to do there. Then once you get there, it's like, okay, you get that going because you remember that feeling. That's how I kind of think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. So I guess I was thinking kind of what I was asking. Like motivation doesn't. I don't think it comes from an emotion or it comes from a feeling to do something or not do something. I think it's so you talk about purpose preceding vision, right? And then vision maybe preceding motivation, and motivation preceding action.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be a kind of a way to
Yeah, motivation, desire.
Okay, so that's what was going through my mind. It's just trying to get everything lined up to where it's like if you want to be motivated, you need a vision. If you want to have a vision, you need to you seek your purpose. So if you're not motivated right now, well, what are you seeing your preferred future as? If you can't answer that question, then what are you seeing your purpose in life as? If you can't answer that question, then what are you doing with your time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or how are you seeking? I don't know. That's what, because then if you're wondering where motivation is and why nothing's happening, well, action doesn't come until motivation's there. Motivation doesn't come until vision's there. Vision doesn't come until purpose is there. Purpose doesn't come until you make a choice to seek it out, to seek what that purpose is. I guess that's what I was thinking. I don't know. I don't have too specific of motivationals, but
well, certainly desire fits in there too.
Yeah, so that you're not getting it all mixed up and not getting motivation before purpose and and action before vision and all that stuff. I guess in my mind I like to have it. I like to see it systematically, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think so. Motivation, right? It's the desire to take action, and like you're talking about, this is beyond like I don't feel like it, right? Like you're talking about like being tired at the end of the day, but it's like I'm going to show up because I have a commitment and because I've got the desire to bear fruit and to do things of value. So I'm going to show up even though it's tiring or whatever. But it's because you see the value in what you're doing. And so regardless of what it feels like, I'm going to continue to chase after it because of this epic value. And so, motivation comes from vision and purpose, right? Like you got to know where you're going, why you're going there, and how to get there. You take all those things away, and what you're left with is super confused and frustrated, right? It's this is where you get stagnant. You don't take any action because you have nothing. You have nothing to take action towards. Right. Yeah. It's like you could have a bit of a picture of the future. You could have a bit of a desire. But then if you're thinking, dude, I don't even know if that's possible. And then two, I don't even know where to start. Good luck for having motivation because you don't have any idea what to freaking do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So motivation comes and is sourced from knowledge. Right, it's that knowledge of the visions, the purpose, right? And I think systematically, I think sometimes, well, like your purpose has always been with you. Your God-given ability has always been in you and with you. And so sometimes your vision will help you see and define your purpose. So even though you have your purpose, but sometimes being able to see that vision will help you kind of identify what that purpose is.
So maybe vision, or maybe purpose doesn't necessarily need to precede vision.
No, well, it's like, because it's those gifts and it's the things inside of you, and those gifts helps your direction. So seeing what it is that you actually want to do, but like for reals, and then mixing it with your gifts and your purpose, it kind of helps you point your vision in the right direction. Because I mean, there was times in my life, right, where I was like, oh, maybe I'll open up a gym. It's like I wanted to do a business, but I wanted to have impact on people. But it's just like it just never kind of felt right. And so, or it never really came into place. Because I mean, I tried to get a PT certification like way back in the day, but never did it. And whatever. So it's like there was different avenues I was looking into, right, as I was kind of seeking out, and while I was asking this question, like, freaking, what am I supposed to do with my life, right? Like that struggle of who am I and what the crap is this life about? So being like, okay, here's one, but kind of like, but none of that was really it. But then it's sometimes some of the problem is the gifts that you already have, you've already kind of pushed down and discounted, right? As like, oh man, that's not for me, or that's not this and that. So sometimes you got to uncover that, and vision will help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just thinking about this concept of kind of like what you were talking about, where I've got this vision, I've got this commitment, and it fuels you taking action regardless of what you feel like. And there's a story of Jesus with the Samaritan woman at the well. So Jesus was on a journey. He came, I don't know, it was like the middle of the day, I think, or morning, or who knows. And so anyways, he sits down, there's a Samaritan woman there. And so it said that he was tired from the journey. So he asked this lady if she would get him some water from the well. And so she's being a Samaritan, and the Jews don't associate with the Samaritans. So she, addresses that with him. It's like, oh man, you're not supposed to talk with me. And it's at this point where Jesus says, so he asked her for water. She brought up this cultural weirdness. And he was like, man, if you knew who it was speaking to you and the gift of God, you would have asked me for water, and the living water, and I would have given it to you. And so she's like, well, you don't even have a cup to draw with. What are you even talking about? And anyway, so they just get talking, and he starts telling her whole life story essentially. And then she's like, oh my gosh, you're a prophet. And then, it just kind of comes down to like, she's like, oh, but the Messiah will come and he'll tell us which mountain to pray on and this and that. And he's like, no, I am whom speaking to you am him. And so she went back into the city to tell everybody there to come back out to Jesus. So while the people were coming out, the disciples were in the city and they were getting food. And so they come, and while the people are still approaching their position, the disciples are like, oh, Jesus, man, you got to eat. And Jesus' response was, he's like, I have food that you know nothing about. He's like, my food and my drink is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. And so then he proceeds to tell them the story. He's like, look, man, you guys have this saying the harvest is 4 months away. He's like, but I'm telling you that the harvest is ripe right here, right now. He's like, look. He's like, you need to go out, right? The harvest is reaped. Go and harvest so that the one who sowed and the one who harvests can have joy together. Somebody else went and sowed, and now you're going to come and reap the benefits. And so, but he's talking about these people who are approaching him. But like, the beginning of the story was he was tired, right? From the journey. He wanted some water. I don't even know if he got any water. And it's like, so here's the disciples like, hey man, eat. And he's like, there's something more glorious than this food right now. And it's just interesting, this concept of the vision and the glory of the will of God that was way beyond physical circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys think anything about that?
Well, it's just, yeah. I was thinking at how, I have abundance of, gifts, and I'm thankful for having, like, because Jesus, like, that was, like, that's what he did. Like, and other people like Paul, like, they, despite how tired or worn out they were, like, they had such a drive that nothing got in their way. Like, kind of makes me feel like, because it's so easy for me, to sometimes complain, and I have such an abundance of things. Like, sometimes God's like, look, man, like, you got a place to live, and you got food, and you have an abundance of people in your life. Like these are like tools. Like, I want you to keep going with this, because sometimes you can get discouraged and say, but it's so hard, or I wish I had more time to spend with my friends, or I wish, I'm just busy doing this all the time. And yeah, that might be true, but yeah, sometimes you have to reflect on like just how, if you look at some of these stories, like, especially like you said, like with Jesus, like like this dude was like on a straight, and you see this with some people in society. Like there's people like who are on a straight mission. Like they sleep, they eat, they breathe what they're doing, and guess what? They get the results out of it. You know, and like I try to do that, and I'll give myself credit that I do a pretty decent job at it. But yeah, it definitely takes. It's like look at some of the other people. Like you want the results, well, the discipline and motivation's got to be there too, or the discipline and having that motivation too. So yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thinking anything?
Yeah. Yeah, would it be weird to say like motivation almost, I don't know, I guess I don't really know how to put it into words, but like motivation almost keeps you going in a certain direction, and almost, I don't want to say numbs you to just outside trivial things that are trying to flow in, but it almost it's like a fuel for the direction. I don't know. It's almost like motivation brings a focus that almost doesn't get bothered by outside things because of because you want to reach the destination bad enough that it's like these outside things are almost seem trivial. Even I don't want to say food is trivial, but like things that try to just trivial things that try to get your attention, a TV show, a friend group that's hanging out when you might have to get something done that's part of your vision or something, or I don't know, just trivial, just things that can maybe they'd be like, okay, well, is this really going to be part of my vision if I go here or do this or whatever. So I guess I was thinking motivation kind of brings a focus, maybe that almost keeps you numb to things that you don't really need to spend time on or energy on or money on or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of zoned out for a second, and that's
And that's
back in.
wow.
Well, yeah, if you think about well, so
all over here.
even like modern, like so here, like having a job, right? You got coworkers and you got bosses and stuff like that, and you're gonna hear things that you don't always want to hear, and like there's rules and stipulations, and it's like kind of I see what you're saying. Like for me, like kind of not being like just doing whatever you want, but weeding out the small like because like going back, like Jesus and Paul and what they had. I mean, of course they had critics all over the place, but it was like people would yell and threaten them, and I mean imprison them, and it's like wow, it's like, okay, what I know I know where I'm at, I know my identity.
Yeah,
you're not gonna throw me off. That's powerful, and I think that takes. I know for me, it takes practice. It's like, okay, it doesn't come overnight, but it takes practice on constantly reminding yourself when you get that critique or whatever. It's like, okay, reminding myself of identity and then purpose and then vision and then keep on the motivation track. So I don't know. That's what I was thinking about when you said like that.
I think if you look at somebody that's not motivated, they're consumed by all these outside things that are trivial and don't really matter. So the difference, I think, between somebody that's motivated and somebody that's not motivated is somebody that's not. I mean, to kind of tell if you're motivated or not is are you consumed by those things? Because somebody that's not motivated really is. I guess when I wasn't motivated and I was just kind of floating, all those things meant something to me. What food am I eating, or how am I? Am I going out with friends tonight, or am I not going out with friends tonight, or what shows on TV. So all those things. So I think when you're motivated, kind of goes back to like when Jesus, he was so satisfied in the work he was doing and the purpose that he was pursuing. It was like, I might be hungry right now, but there's stuff to be done right now. I'll eat later. There's stuff to be done.
And the other thing you brought up, I was thinking about like with Jesus, like he did take time. Like it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think he did take some time to retreat and prayed and meditated and that type of stuff. So
right. I don't think
No.
I don't think he had to force himself away from food. I think he was just so
Yeah.
into what he was doing. But anyways, what were you going to say? Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no, I think it's like we talked about before. Like, sure, like enjoy that stuff, like do that stuff, hang out with friends, watch a TV show, eat yourself a bowl of froyo or something like that.
Some Fruit Loops,
But it's like, and that's okay. That's so
Yeah.
give yourself that permission. But
Sure.
make sure you're putting your time fruitful into things.
Yeah. Am I making progress?
Yeah. And sometimes it might not, quote unquote, feel like you're making progress,
True that.
but
Yeah, that's true
and-
too. Yeah.
patience can be.
If you have to ask yourself that and you're sitting on the couch and you've been there for 3 hours,
Yeah. Yeah.
Some self-awareness. that
Be
needs to happen.
realistic about
but
it.
no, yeah, I definitely get what you're coming from. Like, yeah, you need to take a time and just do
Mm.
other things and be with other people and stuff. But that doesn't mean you let all that stuff in all the time. After that time, you come back into the mission
Mhm.
or the vision, whatever, and you get back at it. I mean, and that takes discipline to do that. It takes discipline disconnecting from those things, coming back in, and then disconnecting from that for a time to regroup. Be with the people you love, do the things that people need you to do, and then disconnect from that, come back into the vision. And so, yeah, I think it's, but it's never like you're forcing yourself away from these things. It's just like you're so into what you're doing that these things start to just not matter,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
they just slowly leak out of your life. They're not there anymore. Eventually,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because you think about, because just kind of thinking about Jesus's heart a little bit, like, so he sits down, he's hot and he's tired, asks the lady for some water, right? She talks about this cultural difference, and I think in this moment, right, because this takes me back to the time where there was this father who had a son who was demon possessed. The father took his son to the disciples who had been healing people, who had been delivering people, took him to them. They couldn't do anything. So this guy, crushed, right, comes to Jesus and he's like, hey, man, if you can do anything to help me, please do it. Now, this guy, from his perspective, right, crushed, tried, his son's been in this sucks, right, brokenhearted, comes to Jesus, says, if it's possible. This guy, from his perspective, is it possible? Jesus, from his perspective, says, is it possible? He said, anything's possible for those who believe. Jesus, from his perspective, right? So he's sitting here with this lady. This lady says, but we're not supposed to associate. This guy, from his perspective, sees this person who has this misconception. I mean, it's a real conception. This junk is going down, but this is God's heart right here saying, Frank, man, if you had any idea what the gift of God actually was and who it was who was standing in front of you, you would have asked me for living water, regardless of the water I wanted, and I would have gave it to you. And it would cause springs of living water to flow from you that you would never thirst again. And it's just like, the physical just doesn't even matter, because it's like, here's the truth and the eternal and the spiritual that is so freaking alive. And he says, no, like, he sees this broken lady and he's just like, if you had any idea what I came to do and who I am, you would ask me and I would have gave it to you. And it's like the disciples come with this food and it says, but then here's this group, this whole entire town who's coming out because they heard of just what this lady said to them about what Jesus said to her. So here comes this town and the disciples are like, man, you got to eat. And he's just like, there is stuff that is just so more alive. He's like, look at these people. He's like, the harvest is freaking ripe. Can you not see it? Can you not taste it? And I kind of feel a little bit like the disciples, like I'm seeing this reality where there's this drive that is so freaking beyond physical, right? This look, everything that was physical was made from the spiritual. So it's like, is it possible that the spiritual could fuel the physical? Like, I think that junk is possible, because there was times where Jesus would just, he would be up all night praying, right? He was up all the day before teaching and walking and doing these things, and he'd be up all night praying, right? And then there's the one time where he walked across the sea, right? He was going to pass the disciples in the boat. They freaked out. They're like, oh my gosh, it's a ghost. He's just walking across miles. Who knows how far it was across the water, whatever. And then never eating and just being like, there's my food and drink is to do the will of him who sent me. And there's just this epic, deep, rich, like understanding of what God's will actually is that would cause you to enter into this just sexier level of life where it's just like the kingdom of heaven is the only thing I eat and breathe, and it literally fuels my body to accomplish these things. Right? Like Paul talks about, he's like, I learned how to be content in every situation. And so for the most part, I disagree with what most people think about this verse, because they think, okay, being content means like you don't want stuff, right? Like it's okay, be happy with what you have and whatever. Well, the problem is that Paul literally used the word want. He literally used the word need. He's like, I know what it is to have plenty. I know what it is to be in want. I know what it is to have, and I know what it is to be in need. If you're hungry, you want food. If you're cold, you want to be warm, right? So he says, I've learned through these experiences, I've learned the secret of being content, which is interesting. So contentment has nothing to do with the absence of wanting more, right? But he says, I learned how to be content because I can do all these things through Christ who gives me strength. But it's like, for me, I hear that, I say that, and it's like, it's so religious and empty. But I know that there's something so much deeper and richer where he's literally being fueled by God. Like, because this is in Philippians, and so Paul's in prison. The Philippians sent somebody with a gift to Paul, and he's talking about how he's amply supplied. But he's like, not that I was longing for your gift. He's like, I'm glad you gave me a gift because of what it'll mean for you for eternity. And I don't think he's being a jerk, right? Because he's like, I didn't want it. Like, I wasn't like needing it. He's like, it's not because he's being a jerk. It's because he's flowing from this total other reality of like what the will of God is. And he's like, God gives me strength. Like literally though, like that's not an empty word. He's like, literally, I can do these things because God literally gives me strength. And there just seems like there's something so much more sexy about that whole passage, about this concept of understanding God's will that fuels your entire being, where it's just like there really, this physical reality exists because of the spiritual. And it's like there's just things that are beyond physical that work, that function, and it's for that life and that existence that we're working, right, for eternal life to bring people into this reality. But yeah, it just this concept of like the will of God being understood, what it is you're doing, why you're after it, and what you need to do it, is like there's this whole other level of action that like, I'm like, how do you get into that? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Any of that?
A lot of thoughts.
A lot of thoughts.
A lot of power.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just crazy stuff flowing through my head. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Thinking about.
I guess what one of the thoughts I had was just how, like when you exist in that reality, almost like how small everything seems still. I mean, like, it's easy to get consumed by big vision.
Yeah.
It's easy to get consumed by that. But when you exist in that reality, like you were talking about with Paul, and that reality of, Jesus' perspective when he's looking at these people with these problems, when you live in that reality, I guess, it just makes everything seem smaller and allows you to see it, I guess, with a clear perspective. And, I don't know, help you answer the questions of why am I doing this? What am I doing? And what does it look like? And instead of just being so consumed in something, I think, living in that reality is what came to my mind. And then seeing those things as, not as what do I say? It might look difficult, I guess, from the beginning. It might look difficult if you're looking at like, do I want to go to college or not? Do I need to study for 4 years, or do I want to? Do I need to go work at this job for 5 years to get some experience and then go do something that I want to go out on my own or start a business or whatever it is? It might look difficult, but when you live in that reality that Paul was living in of like, what did you say? How did you kind of explain? How did you define that reality that he was living in? Not being in want, a constant state of want or need, but just.
Well, he was saying like he's like, I know what it is to have plenty, but I know what it is to be in want. I know what it is to, have food, but I know what it is to be hungry. Like, but none of those things dictate my ability to jam forward. But it's like this gift, which they gave him, and he's like, man, it amply supplied me. But it's like, it's almost like he just didn't care. Like that's not what was gonna get him through,
right.
And that wasn't what's gonna fuel him beyond this. It's like there's this whole other level of glory that was literally tangible.
Yeah. Just trying to put thoughts into words.
Well, yeah, it is powerful, and it's where it's hard to comprehend just how much you get this mental image of this guy just just so confident in his purpose and his walk with God, like it totally transformed. It's from Saul to Paul.
Yeah.
It's like his eyes were covered for 3 days and his road to Damascus, and the scales fell off, and he's like, now he sees. Now he sees, like, from a person who persecuted others to a person that is like totally opposite that. Like he's just a changed man, and how that the Spirit just like filled him up and like gave him that spiritual food that, I mean, he was a leader before, but he was leading in the, I don't say, can't label it as wrong, but now he's leading with a totally different purpose, and like people are like, is this the same, Paul that was Saul before? Like, what the freak happened, man? Like, and he's like, dude, like, it wasn't me. Like, and it's just like, so yeah, that's powerful though. And, still trying to gravitate that in my life, but it makes me think, it makes me think of what I can do and like the potential that I sometimes I think we sell ourselves short because we give ourselves the excuses of, that was, there's definitely potential and power in that spiritual life force.
So when you're when you believe in your vision and you're living in that kind of glorious reality of being aligned with God, with Christ, it's almost like I'm going regardless. Then what Paul was kind of that was his perspective. Like, if you send this gift, great, but I'm going regardless. Or if these things happen to me, I go to prison, whatever, I'm moving regardless. Is that kind of what? I guess I'm understanding that right.
Yeah, but it's even like richer than that, because he says, I do all these things through Christ who gives me strength. Like,
sure.
Literally though, like literally gives him strength. It's not just this empty thing, but it is like that. But it's like, because he wasn't asking for that gift or whatever. They showed up, they knew he was in need and gave it to him. And it's just like, it just seems.
Understanding where your strength comes from.
Yeah, but he's literally talking about like having nothing.
Sure.
Right? I mean, like, you think about
Sure.
like all the journeys he went on, right? I mean, you're talking about like miles and miles of walking and, boating, shipping across seas and all these things. So, I mean, you end up in some crazy situations without clothes, with clothes. I mean, I mean, if you're in the wilderness, I mean, there's not a Payless shoe store around. You know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is. But yeah, there's just this crazy reality. I don't know. I mean, just slightly on that note. I mean, you know, Jesus was like, look, man, you guys are. You're gonna drink poison and it's not gonna kill you. You're gonna get bit by snakes and it's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna hurt you, right? And Paul literally got bit by a snake in Acts on one of those islands that I think they got shipwrecked or they boated for a little while, or like stayed there for a little while because of the storm. But yeah, but just like this there's this real reality of the spiritual that is so freaking alive that it's beyond the physical, and it can even fuel the physical, which sounds weird, but I don't think it is. I think things sound weird when you don't understand them. But, which I'm not claiming to understand it, but
right.
I want it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I guess. I'd love something like that.
Well, it's just like. It's just interesting. It just seems like it's so easy to talk ourselves out of like massive amounts of action, or like regardless of what you feel like talking to these people or doing this stuff. I don't know, but it's more than just doing stuff, right? I mean, we're talking about purpose. We're talking about, he's like, I came to do the will of the Father, right? I only say what the Father told me to say, and I only do what I see the Father doing. So we're not talking about just doing stuff and being busy and, you know, just not eating. I mean, there's a place for fasting, but, you know, this isn't just an empty lifestyle. This isn't just like, here, we got to do these things. No, this was fueled by something greater. This reality of the will of God is what like fuels this goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you even think about like going back to this knowledge concept, this knowledge of the will. I mean, Paul, you know, I think it was Philippians as well. But he's talking about how he's like, everything I was doing, right, back in the days of the law, right? I was an Israelite, circumcised, you know, I kept the law faultlessly, you know, I persecuted the church, you know, but everything that I once thought was like gain, everything I once thought was like, this is life, this is the jam. He's like, man, it's all freaking garbage compared to like this encounter I had with God, and to knowing who Jesus actually is. Oh man, like literally like his death and his resurrection, somehow attaining into that reality. He's like, there's nothing else has any value compared to this. And these aren't empty freaking words, man. This is for reals. This is like the real, tangible, measurable. He's just like, I count it all as lost, and therefore, man, he's like, I'm not saying that I've attained it. He's like, but one thing is for sure. I chuck off everything from the past, and I run forward to achieve the goal, to win the prize. I mean, Paul just had these crazy perspective. He's like, you know, there's one time he's talking about how he's like, he doesn't charge anybody. Like, he doesn't ask people for support while he's ministering to them. But he's saying, he's like, we have the right. I mean, like, just like the other apostles, just like they do. He's like, but I don't. He said, because if I'm getting paid for doing what I'm supposed to be doing, there's no reward for me. He's like, but if I do it for free, he's like, there's going to be this reward in heaven for me because I did it for free. Like I did it beyond, you know, getting this income. And it's just, I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but it's like, it's just, he had this, which can kind of seem from one perspective like he's just kind of ridiculous, but from this other perspective, he has knowledge. He's had this encounter. He has the knowledge and understanding that would cause him to make certain decisions on purpose. And it's like, it's that knowledge that fuels, right? Because motivation in this life, it's not void of understanding. Like this life of like, man, it's my food and my drink is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. It's not void of understanding. Like to get into that is with encounters. It's with knowledge. It's with understanding. It's with experiences. Like Paul said, he's like, look, man, I've learned, this is a key word, learned the secret to being content through experience, right? through having plenty and not having any, right? Like I know what it is to just live straight out of the glory of God. And so whether I have a lot or whether I have nothing, these things don't really matter. I'm fueled by the reality of the kingdom of heaven. And that's like glory.
Yeah.
Fueled by the reality of the kingdom of heaven.
Yes. Yes, indeed. I mean, there's this, we talked about a couple times ago about Ezekiel 47 and that river that flowed out of the temple. Well, there's the same similar picture in Revelations 22 where we're in the New Jerusalem and there's the throne of God, and sourced from underneath the throne is this river of life that flows throughout the city. On either side are the trees of life, which bear fruit in season, and the leaves are for the healings of the nations. And it's just like God is the source of life.
Mm-hmm.
The source of life. This breath, his breath that gave life to Adam's dirt body, right? This spiritual that is eternal, this body, which is temporary. The spiritual has so much more weight. Everything visible was made from the invisible. Yeah, there's something epic there. Something epic indeed.
Epic.
Don't miss it. Don't miss
For
the
sure.
reality.
Yeah. Go get you some.
Mm.
Go get you some glory.
Plugging into that motivation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
It's just like, physical motivation. So physical, why do you, what's your purposes for physical activity, exercise, right? Maybe to get bigger, to stronger, I don't know, like the way you look or something like that. And that's all fine. That's good. I'm fine and dandy, but it's like, yeah, but when you can so you get that, but then you can, find the other motivation towards like, because you can have that, and then but you could still be doing like the monotonous, working paycheck to paycheck, and it's like digging deeper into your purpose and finding that motivation for bigger things than just physical activity. But
Totally.
yeah,
It motivates me to wake up in the morning.
White toaster strudels.
Folgers.
Oh man, I mean that helps me. Sure, coffee's good. Yeah,
That's the best part of waking up.
yeah, definitely.
Folgers in your cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Folgers in your
But
cup.
being around like-minded people too, who are on the same path, that helps out a lot too.
Yes, it does.
Because like you
It's hard
said,
to have motivation.
because you're gonna get like Paul, like how many critics and stuff like that. He's like, kept on going. He didn't get wiggled and weaved off path.
It's hard to be motivated when you're surrounded by people not motivated.
Sure.
It's hard to be not motivated when you're surrounded by people who are motivated.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. He even in the end of Philippians, he's talking about how Timothy was with him, and he was like just talking about how Timothy had been is like struggling in prayer for him, and he's like there's I don't know. He was just talking about how like Timothy's love for these people was genuine. And it wasn't like most people, because he says most people just care about their own concerns, right? They're just themselves. He said most people. He says, but Timothy, man, he cares about you and your welfare. And therefore he works and labors in prayer on your behalf. But it just struck me, because he says most people just worry about their own concerns, are focused on these things. But there's a few people who care more about the kingdom and the people who should be in it than they do about themselves. And it dials back into this reality of the will of God and knowing what the heck that actually is. Because The biggest frustration and the biggest stumbling block of taking action and of motivation is a lack of clarity, right? When you don't know where you're going, you don't know why you would go anywhere, and you have no idea what to do about it. That being void of this knowledge kills motivation. But having these things dialed in, being crystal clear on what we're doing, why we're after it, and continuing to dial it in, it's a process. It's a process to keep getting more clear. It's a process to get it more defined. I keep finding all the time, I'm like, but like what? There's like, it's like, there's even something more deeper. Like for me personally, I'm just like, there's something, it's just like, it's a process, and it's okay. It's a process as long as you're in the process. But it's this knowledge of what should I do and getting into it that brings about motivation.
Cool.
Yeah. My good peoples, that's us. We are Be Transformed. Keep it motivated. Peace.
Peace.
Peace out.
Real motivated.
Guys, thanks so much for sticking around. If you're new to Be Transformed, make sure you subscribe and then hit us up at teambetransformed.com, where you can find everything you need to live a life that says all day, I keep it cultivated. If you're not sure what that is, make sure you check out the video and then join the movement. Until next time.